I have the immense honor of welcoming on stage, all the way from the US, our highlight speaker, the speaker of the year, probably Dale. Please welcome him with a huge clap.
Imagine you're 17 years old and you're sitting at the table with your parents and you're telling them that you're not going to university, but instead you're going to tour in a band all over the United States. How would that go for you? My man, did you play in a band? Did you tour? Oh, okay. So really, you probably have no idea how my parents felt, but imagine for yourself. Does anybody have kids? I have two. They're sitting right here in the front, so bear with them. One of them is two. You'll hear it multiple times that he's two. So imagine that your children came to you and told you that they were going to do something very non-traditional with their life. How would that make you feel? A little uncomfortable? I like that. Will you be one of my parents in that case? I had pretty non-traditional parents, just to say, and to give you a little bit of background, leading up to this moment, I was actually homeschooled my entire life. Anybody know what homeschool is? Yeah, not really. So my mother went to college, got a degree, and decided that she wanted to teach her children at home, give us a classical education, if you will. And so she did. And in the process of doing that, she taught us to think for ourselves, to think outside the box, to be different, to choose things that weren't normal or natural in some instances, but were the right thing to do. So in that moment, I thought, well, this is probably the right thing for me, as I sat at that table and told my parents. Now, some context to this, I had about 12 full scholarships to college. I know I don't look like it, but I did. Some of them were academic, most of them were sports. Anybody play sports in the room? What's up? What's up? What'd you play? Basketball. Yeah, basketball's crazy over here in Croatia. Though when I watch the NBA and then I watch the Croatian basketball leagues, I'm like, oh, no wonder like the guys that come over to the NBA from here are hard. So I played soccer, football, traditionally soccer in the U.S., and I loved it. It was, my dad played football actually, like American football, and the big issue with that was that he broke his neck while he was playing football. So can you imagine breaking your neck in a sport? Kind of crazy, right? He broke his neck and back, and he lived through it, and he wasn't paralyzed for the rest of his life. They told him it was a miracle. And so he told me I couldn't play football, but I could play every other sport. Well, soccer, I mean, I broke everybody's legs. I busted my face wide open at a tournament game, I remember, broke teeth in my mouth. I pretty much played football, American football, just on a pitch was kind of the idea, right? So even when I was told I had to play by the rules or do things one specific way, I didn't. I did everything different, right? It was just kind of like in my genetics, if you will. So that day at the table, sitting with my parents, telling them that I wanted to pursue music, changed everything for me. Because I also had parents who took a different route, as I've kind of explained here. And so they looked me in the eye and basically said, okay, if that's what you want to do, then feel free. Go play in a band. Let's see what happens. The best part of this, too, is that my mom and dad were at my first show for my first tour. We played in Orlando. There was probably 1,000 people there. I remember I was hanging from one of the rafters in the ceiling. I played in a heavy metal band. And so I'm screaming my head off. The music is loud. Everybody's moshing. I'm hanging from the ceiling. There's blood everywhere. And I look back, and I see my mom and my dad watching me. Big old smiles on their face. What a cool moment. To not just be different, but have the support of a community to be different. And really, though, what I want you to think about here is that even though there was a lot of people in that room supporting me, if you will, there was really only two people. In most instances in our lives and the choices that we make, we don't get support by many people at all. Most of the time, it's our choice and it's our own support that takes us places to begin with. I had a lot of ideas for today. I had a whole presentation set up actually even before I got here that I decided to bail on and do something different. Just a gut feeling that I had. And so today I want to talk to you all about my reason. But also I want to remember the concept of choosing legendary, which is literally printed on my shirt, just so that it's ingrained into your brains. Now, if anybody's writing or taking notes or just taking mental notes, is fine too. But when I say choose legendary, I want you to remember one word. The word is excellence. What does excellence mean to you in this room? I'd like to hear some answers. No compromise? Ooh. What's it? Winning. What else? Go ahead. One more time. Sweat the details. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Becoming a better version of yourself every day. That's great. Anybody else? Don't be shy. You guys are in sales and marketing, and some of you are business owners or leaders, right? So I want to hear you participate. I'm just a kid on stage with a microphone and a lot of ideas, but I need you and your support today in order to make this really fun. So excellence is the idea of being something worth value to others in all things, personal, professional, and private. That's the concept. So your value to others. What is that? When I say your value to others, what goes through your head? What does that mean to you? What you're worth. And what would you say if I'm somebody in your circles and I was to express to the room your value through my lens? What do you think I would say if I was one of your friends or a colleague? Yeah.
Yeah, always trying to get the best out of myself and the rest of my team. Yeah. I would say hard driving, perhaps, which isn't always positive, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a good answer. Very honest. I appreciate that. It's a powerful thought. What would other people say about you when you're not in the room that is of value to them? Excellence in all things, right? And I think the private side is the most important as well, too. What we do in private defines who we are. Some people will never even know about what we did in private in most instances. But what we do in private will define who we are. Period. Would you all agree? Anybody have an example of somebody in their life that was of excellence in their private life that they'd want to share right now? Do you have somebody in your life that exuded the qualities of excellence, like we've just stated, in their private life? Stories of things that they've done that nobody knows about. You do.
My grandfather supported all his brothers, and nobody knew until he passed that he was the sole provider for his 6 other siblings.
Wow. That's intense. That's powerful. Anybody else want to share?
My dad pulled up halfway through my first semester on a full basketball scholarship and told me to quit school to pursue music.
What's up, dude? It's like my twin said that. That's awesome. I love that. Anybody else want to share? It's okay if you don't. This one's tough. In the 70s, my father was one of the best football players, not just in the county that he lived in or the city, but the state. As a matter of fact, he was looked at nationally. I don't expect anybody to know these universities, but the University of Alabama, University of Tennessee, Clemson, Georgia, Florida State, these are all schools that were offering my father full rides to come and play football. My dad was a quarterback's worst nightmare. That was always the joke. As a matter of fact, one time I did a cold call to a big insurance company in Orlando, and when the guy saw my name, he had his secretary bring me up to ask me if I was Curtis Dupree's son. And I said, yeah. And he said, I've got stories for you. And he played at my dad's rival school and was the rival quarterback. I sat there for like 2.5 hours and listened to this man's story. But the best part was he had a news article where he was interviewed by the Orlando Sentinel and asked about my dad and what they were worried about with my dad. That was the literal question that they asked. And this guy literally said, he is probably the biggest conflict in my mind to winning. Written right there in the newspaper. My dad was a legend. He was one of the greatest. He averaged like 5 sacks a game. Now, this is high school, right? So it's a little bit of a lower level when you're really good. But could you imagine that in the NFL? Be a pretty powerful person. Well, my dad didn't make it, and let me tell you why. His mother, everybody heard of a Nigerian prince before? Yeah. You get an email from one once in a while, maybe when you were younger. All the money that they have for you. Well, my grandmother was swindled by the same concept, but in the 70s, it was a man doing surgeries on athletes to make them run faster. And the surgery itself, actually, it literally scarred you for life. My dad lived with chronic ankle pain for the rest of his life. It was so harsh. I remember hearing my dad, we had Mexican tile on the floor, which is basically just a hard stone. And I remember hearing my dad smash his feet, that left ankle, down against that stone just to feel relief from the pain that he had his whole life. Never did he complain about that pain, by the way, but he had to live with it forever because of a choice. One simple choice changed the trajectory of his life. So every single scholarship got pulled after it was told that my father had had this surgery. And there was 180-something victims of this person. The guy like fled to Mexico, the whole 9 yards. This is a real story, kind of a crazy thought. However, one university gave my dad a scholarship still, and it was called Carson Newman Bible College. So if you've got all these great scholarships to these prestigious schools, and then you end up taking the Carson Newman Bible College, it's kind of deflating a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Well, what's crazy is that my wife and I actually visited that school not too long ago and did some research, and we found that my dad's graduating class, there were 6 men that went on to play in the NFL that knew my father, spent 2 years with him before he broke his neck and back. And so then it kind of became very real to me that my dad even had a second chance to make it. But God had other plans, as we say. And instead, my father looked at the gift of being able to walk and not be paralyzed for life and to come home and get a job and start a career. He started his career selling paper. Everybody heard of Dwight Schrute? Yeah. My dad was the literal Dwight Schrute of Orlando, Florida. And he went out and sold paper to businesses. Real life. Now, back then, too, the same companies that sold things like paper and supplies sold office equipment like copy machines. So my dad actually ended up selling copy machines. It took a couple weeks because they don't let people just sell copy machines. But once they finally gave him the option to do it, he exploded. He became the #1 sales rep at the organization and literally defined the track of his life. He then went on to own his own company for 29 years. It's kind of wild how in our plans to do something, we end up in places we never thought we would. Does anybody have a similar story in this room? You were on track for something completely different, yet here you are today. Yeah? Tell me about it. So did you go to college for architectural design? You got a master's in it. And now you do what?
Digital marketing for a company that does hydrofoils and electric boats on hydrofoils.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Well, great. Do you love it?
I do, but I also like the designing too, so yeah.
Do you dabble in that at all still, or?
No, I actually used it as a base for what I do now. So it was a great foundation for what I ended up doing now, but no, nothing to do with architecture.
Yeah. Wild. What a great story. Anybody else here today that was headed in a completely different direction? I know you were. You want to tell your story?
So I was on a full basketball scholarship in college, went to do music, got my first record deal when I was 18. I was top 100 DJ in the world for a few years. Then I got bored, and I started teaching at university at NYU for 8 years. Got bored, moved to Florida, started a company that we just sold, and now I'm starting a new one in this industry. Miami. Yeah.
Did you party down? Well, you were a DJ, so did you do any gigs down there? Sorry? Did you do any gigs as a DJ down there in Miami? Yeah, we probably. How long were you there? Are you still in Miami? Oh my gosh, yeah. We need to hang out. What's up? You want to say hi? Yeah, you're too shy, huh? So let's go back to my story and how I started this conversation. I'm at a table with my parents. I'm this non-traditional upbringing. I've been raised different. I'm homeschooled. I learned every religion. I learned every little bit of history you could possibly imagine. You know, from good to bad to ugly to evil, everything. And I chose to play in a touring band. That was my goal. And now I had no promise of playing music for the rest of my life to any capacity. It was just a thought. But ultimately, it was the reason that I believed I existed. That was something that I could tie myself to very deeply. The reason that I believed that I was brought to this earth was to entertain people, to play music, to express myself through that art. And that was what I told my parents that day in a very naive way. Hindsight is always incredible, right? But that day I had something that drove me to have that conversation. Something deep inside of me that said, this will be risky, but you should do it. How many of us still operate like that to this day, though, is the question I always ask myself. At the time I was 17, I'm 40 now. I just turned 40. That's crazy. It goes by really fast, right? I literally live on the edge with my family. Yeah, I have 2 kids and a wife, and I live on the edge still. I still make the dumbest decisions. I still risk everything possible. I still do everything non-traditionally. I say no to selling out all the time, taking the money and running. I should probably stop saying no to that stuff and do it at some point. But the point is that it's not what makes me happy. It's not what fulfills who I am. It's not my reason. And now I want to say, too, though, that to get here, I never thought it would take the path that it did. But my first show on the road, on tour with my band, who was called Imperial, if you want to look us up, just type in my name and type in Imperial. You can type in like Orlando, Florida, too, and you'll find us. You know, we're all over. We got records and the good stuff. Does anybody remember going to CD store like Virgin Records and Best Buy? And what did you have over here? You had like, bootlegs. Yeah, you had bootlegs. I never made it to Europe. We had a tour lined up, but we stopped touring, which was the unfortunate part. But I sold a lot of albums in Germany. None of you are surprised right now. The metal capital of the world. And Japan as well, too, actually, which my son would be really proud of me for. He's a huge Godzilla fan. On the way there, though, is the interesting part. So imagine you have absolutely nothing in your industry and you're trying to get started. Where do you begin, especially when you're 17 and you have no idea? Right, so for us in this day and age, it's AI. I go and I ask AI, what do I do to start my business? And it gives me a generic templated answer that it tells 800,000 other people. And then I start my business and it fails and I suck and I lose and I never get what I wanted. So instead of asking other people for their advice, I literally just did what I felt was right. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but I also got advice in these moments from people that weren't musicians, like the opposite of musicians. I talked to lawyers. I talked to bankers. I asked them, hey, what would you do if you were me and you were trying to go play a show in Alabama and no venues, no promoters, nobody that would show up to the event? I asked people such as that. They were my father's mentors or friends or business partners in some instances, so they had a little bit of acumen. But ultimately, none of them knew the industry to any extent. So I just did what any 17-year-old kid would do, and at the time I had y'all remember the Nokia cell phones? The ones that like I could punch you in the face with it and it would like break all over the floor and we'd put it together and it would call. The brick, as we used to call it. I literally pulled that phone out and I went through a phone book, if you remember those. Used yahoo.com for my Boolean searching to find local venues, and I just made phone calls. I made phone calls to people with one other guy at a table, and I just asked if we could set up a show in the local area and get some help promoting it to some of the local kids, and that we were going to bring a couple bands. Now, this is the part where I really got my first sales experience. Talking to strange people, asking them for favors, basically, and to give me a shot, and hearing a lot of no's. Well, who are you? What band are you in? I've never heard of you. Yeah, that's kind of the point. This is the first time we've ever done it. We're trying really hard. We set 52 dates, 52 shows. It was the hardest sale of my life, without a doubt. Like, looking back and seeing where I am in life now, hardest sale I ever made. 100%. But we set up 52 shows. Now, additionally, what we did is we added 2 bands to our bills, and they were bands that were on record labels. Anybody know how that works? Like a record label versus a non-label? And basically, you have distribution through a record label like Warner Brothers or Universal or Sony. They tell everybody about your music. They put you on the Billboard Top 100. They put you in all the radio stations. They get you in front of all the executives, all the people that love music. Or you don't have any of that, and you do it yourself. You basically pull an Ed Sheeran, as we used to joke, and just play on the side of the street until people finally hear you, enough people hear you that like your music, that will start to support you. So that's what we did. We were the side of the street band, but playing in venues. And that first night, though, we brought these 2 bands into Orlando. We had a huge turnout. It was a couple thousand people. We'd been playing in Orlando for a long time. We were pretty big there. These bands were super pumped. Man, what a great crowd. I can't wait for this tour. And then we broke it to them in the living room that we had a truck with a bed that fit 3 people, and there were 7 people between our band and our roadie that needed to get out. And these guys I remember we're all sipping a beer, and these guys go, oh, that sucks. Well, how are you going to get the rest of the guys out? And I said, we're going to put a couple in each of your vans. Passed them a joint here. These guys reluctantly said yes. And that was it. The story tells itself from here. We did 52 days. I slept in the bed of that truck many nights. I woke up with snow on my face one morning. It was hard. It was rigorous. It was rough. And by the time we got home, we had 13 offers from record labels that were just absolutely blown away that we even did what we did. We played all kinds of different festivals. There was a festival called Dirt Fest, a festival called Cornerstone. We weren't even on the bill. We just showed up. We showed up, we walked in and said, let us play. Which is a crazy thought. But each one of them let us. Excellence in all things. Excellence is taking the risk. Excellence is doing what no one else will do. Excellence is becoming uncomfortable, living in discomfort. Excellence is not settling for what you have, but rather finding what else you could achieve. And this is where the legend of the copier warrior was born. So in the midst of my music career, I got signed to Warner Brothers Records. You've probably heard of Warner Brothers as a distribution company for movies and Hollywood, which sadly was just bought by Netflix. What a crazy time to be alive. First Blockbuster, and now Warner Brothers. Netflix has taken over the world. They distributed us all over the world. I had the music thing unlocked. That was it. I was going to play music for the rest of my life. I was going to be an architect for the rest of my life. And then everything changed, like a snap of a finger. And it started at a music video shoot when my guitar player didn't show up. And I got a phone call from his mom, which was strange. What are you... Hello. She said, hold on, I'm with Josh. She handed him the phone, and he picked up the phone and said, I'm not going to make it. And I said, what's wrong? He said, I'm addicted to heroin. I didn't tell you. I've hidden it from all of you. What a harsh reality that moment was for all of us. And not just because of the dream that we had, but because of the person who was suffering because of that dream. So I realized in that moment that I wasn't going to be able to do this for the rest of my life, especially because there was no way I was going to allow that to become commonplace inside of my own existence and ultimately in others as well too. I desired to build a family, which I have today. Praise God. And so I said, well, I'm going to have to go get a job. My dad owned a copier company, and I wrote him a 7-page dissertation to come and sell copy machines. Dream come true, right? You know, matter of fact, most of my life I remember saying to myself, I'll never work for my dad. That sounds terrible. Everybody else feel that way a little bit at some point in their life? I'm never going to work for anybody's mom or dad own a small business while you were growing up? Got a couple in here. The entrepreneurial parent, concept to me is just wild. My mom and dad were both entrepreneurs. Which is a crazy thought. They did very good job raising us, and helping us to think for ourselves, like I've already expressed. But they forgot to tell us how hard it was. And we never really saw it, to be quite frank. So when I looked at my father's business, I didn't think, this is hard. I thought, no, I don't want to be around my dad. I don't want him to be my boss. The guy who spanked me most of my life and grounded me, I don't want that. No way, dude. I don't want to work for him. That sounds crazy. But here I was, almost groveling at his feet because I had nowhere I could go. I had no degree. I had no accolades. What was I supposed to do? Be an assistant coach for high school basketball and make $15,000 a year? How could I support a family on that? So my dad laughed when I gave him that, my resume, my 7-page, why you should hire me. And he said, hey, man, you can work here. You can have one of two jobs. You can clean the toilets or you can sell. What a weird moment. I thought, okay, well, which one's worse? Why would he do it that way? I'll sell. I don't want to clean the toilets. I'll do the sales thing. He said, you sure? You sure? Yes, I'm sure. And the next year of my life was a living hell. I should have cleaned the toilets. I was commission only. Anybody ever have a commission only job? 1, 2, the rest of you are spoiled. 3, 4, here we go. Kirby vacuums, like what was it? What did you sell? Scientific publishing? Holy cow. Yours was harder than mine. Does anybody ever buy a copy machine in their life? You've bought one? I'm so sorry. You have? I'm so sorry. Do you have one at your office? Little tiny printer, big beast Mamba Jumbo. Do you like it? Do you like your copier? Be honest. When it works, yeah. That's a good way to put it. Selling a copy machine, I went to an event for salespeople. I don't recommend that, by the way. Don't do it. It was one of those big, like Tony Robbins style Grant Cardone events. Lights everywhere. They're screaming at you the whole time. Pick up the phone and call people. It was wild. They had people stand up in 3 different industries. Can you guess what they were? Used car sales. Any other guesses? No. That one, in the States, that one's easy. Insurance? Yep. What was the third? Copiers. So they had everyone stand, and they said, if you work in one of these 3 industries, stay standing. And then this is the part that blew me away, is that then they said, okay, and if you're in insurance, sit down. Half the room sits down. And if you're in used car sales, sit down. The other half of the room sits down. And me and one other guy are standing like as far apart as you can imagine in the room. The presenter on stage, his name was Jeffrey Gitomer, if you've never heard of him. He said, these 2 guys right here are either going to die in their job or they're going to be the best salespeople you've ever met in your entire life. And I just remember being in like total shock and almost fear in that moment of what I had chosen just a couple years into my career. Now, I didn't subscribe to the traditional sales methodology, but I was immersed into it from the get-go. My dad had a very traditional, my dad had a very traditional sales manager Have you ever worked for a sales manager? Anybody in here? One admitted. Some of you are probably sitting next to your sales manager right now. You're like, oh, yeah, I'm just not going to say anything. It can be very difficult when you don't align with that person in any role. And I did not align with that person at all. My father would, after presentations that he would give, my father would pull me to the side and say, I just want you to remember he's your boss, respect him. But you have my permission to be Dale in all things. Just be Dale. Just go out and be Dale. I never quite understood that, though. Have you ever been told to be your authentic self and thought like, yeah, sure, and then just really couldn't execute on that in the business realm? Kind of a weird thought when I first heard it and tried to apply it for myself. Be authentic. It's a buzzword these days. Sell authentically. Like, why do we need a strategy for that in the first place? That seems counterintuitive to me. Why do we have, inside of a methodology or a premise to sales, why do we have to tell people to tell the truth? That seems insane to me. Yet here these people are teaching us these things. And I thought this is snake oil is what this is. But I couldn't figure out how to break away from it. My first year, I sold 33% to quota. Fired. 99% of the jobs that you would have, you'd be fired in that moment. My dad said, I give everybody 2 chances, so I'm going to give you 2 chances as well at the end of the year. Yeah, 1 more year, prove yourself. My dad believed in the long game, which I think is very important to point out here. He played it himself, so he believed in it. So he knew that if in 12 more months, if I couldn't get it, I probably wasn't going to make it. But he gave me 12 more months. My second year, I was at 77% to quota. Much different year. And there was one thing that changed in that year. I decided not to be like everybody else. That's quite frankly like the literal methodology that I started with, if we need to put it into brass tacks and put a word behind it. My method was I'm going to be unlike anybody else. You see up here, the copier warrior. I branded myself as that. I worked for a company called Connectivity Business Systems, my father's business. But inside of it lived the legend of the copier warrior. The weirdest person you've ever met in your life. Selling the most commoditized product. The race to the bottom. Everything was snake oil that we sold. Oh, yeah, we'll do that for you. Oh, yeah, we'll fix it on time. Oh, yeah, we can replace that if it breaks. Every single one of my competitors. And so everyone hated us. You walked in the front door and told somebody that you sold copy machines, and they escort you out with security, quite frankly. Get out of here. And if somebody had a good relationship with their copier person, you weren't getting in. Because they'd already been through the rigors of having to deal with all the liars and the cheats and the people that stole from them. And they finally had somebody. Why would they change? This is the buyer mentality in any industry, by the way. Whether you're selling luxury products or commodity products. People look at you as a means to an end if you're selling. Or you're in marketing. I love marketers, by the way. You'll figure that out about me. Matter of fact, I used to tell people I was in marketing when they asked what I did. I'm in marketing, I think. Because I love the idea of communication, telling stories, captivating people through the way that I sell. I like the idea of being more intimate with people. I call it platonic romance in my circles, in the way we teach. I believe that humans are beautiful. I love people. I'm a very rare person. I walk down the street, and when everybody's doing the opposite of me, I'm loving them in those moments. Not holding the door for my family, I love them, God bless you. Acting like fools, I love them. Honking at me, I blow them a kiss. Not the bird. I'm just different. But I choose this because I could very easily, just like most of us, flip the switch and get out of the car, especially in Florida. Do not drive in the state of Florida. It's the most detrimental thing. My guy knows. Miami is the craziest place in the world to drive. It's disgusting. But I choose something different. I choose to be something that connects with people. When I market, I don't want people to just see my company name and what we do. I want them to feel something. Is that your agenda as well? Do you want them to feel something, or do they just see your pretty name in the lights and you hope that they'll just go with your business and use you? Well, I had 21 competitors, like direct competitors. Anybody have 21 direct competitors? You do more than that? That's an overwhelming thought, right? And just in this one little territory that I was in, 50-mile radius, 100-mile radius, 21 competitors, all out there lying through their teeth. What was I to do? Well, I birthed the Copier Warrior. Year 3, I was like 250% of quota. But let me tell you about the end of year 2 and what happened. It was December. It was just this time of the year. I walked into an office with this woman sitting at the reception desk. It was a doctor's office. There was 2 doctors in total, 1 primary, probably 25 people in the waiting room. And I told this woman, "Hi, I'm here to see Dr. So-and-so. My name is X. I sell copiers." I heard the F word about 3 times, and to leave her office immediately. She called me you people also. "We don't like you people." That's what she said to me. I felt like shattered in that moment by this woman. I was hit pretty hard. Stereotyped, told to get the hell out with the F word. In front of 25 people, mind you. Like, it was the most awkward part. I felt bad for the other people sitting in there. I almost peed in my pants. It was that intense. I was like, I gotta go. It was a gut feeling unlike anything I had ever felt. Felt hated, unwanted, as if I did something wrong. And I went and I had dinner and beers with some friends that night. This is back when I still drank. I miss those days. Could just cut the edge with a beer, you know? And we just brainstormed. I told them the story, said, I got to do something different. I keep getting all this tension. That one was like over the top. And they started suggesting some people that I talked to. Well, I talked to this guy down in Miami, realtor. He had sent out, when direct mail in 2003 had about a 20% return. He sent out a direct mail piece in the real estate world, and he got a 2% return. And he was so pissed off that he went down to the print shop and had him print the same exact mailer. He crumpled the letters all up inside of their envelopes, and he wrote in red marker, "Don't throw me away again," on the front of them, red Sharpie. Every single one of them was like 5,000 mailers. He was there until like 4 a.m. writing on these letters, just like angry. He had a 50% return. 2 people laughing. Oh, that was really funny. Yeah, I get a lot of that crap in the mail and I just throw it away. Ended up listing somewhere in the ballpark of like 40 million houses. And he made a ton of money. 6% off of those sales. And I thought to myself, that's genius. So I went home. I wrote my own letter. I crumpled it up, balled it up in my hand, walked into that same doctor's office, to that same woman. I looked a little different, dressed a little different, tried to kind of like hide myself a little bit. And I said, "Could you give this to Dr. So-and-so?" That's all I said. No, "Hi, my name's Dale. I work for this company, blah, blah, blah." Just, "Hey, could you give this to so-and-so?" She grabbed that thing from me with the most disgusted look, opened it up, read it, and I slowly watched her change right in front of me. I looked into her eyes, saw them differ. She said, "1 second," got up, left the room. I was so nervous. She came back. "The doctor will be right up." "Thank you," I said. "By the way," she responds, "that was genius. Very clever." Doctor walks up. We had a great conversation, walked around the office. About 6 weeks later, I sold her 2 copy machines for about $10,000 a piece. My whole world changed. I realized that people desire different. It's not a strategy either. It's just me being who I am. Because when I heard that story, I thought, oh, dude, Yes, I identify with this. I love this type of marketing. I think most people hate salespeople. It's a phrase I've coined most of my existence. Even salespeople. So if you're in sales and you try to tell me, no, I like sales. I like salespeople. Well, okay, cool. So tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the evening, I'm going to have you sit around the table with your families, and I'm going to have a salesperson call you that's selling cruises or vacation rentals, and I'd like you to stay on the phone with them for the next hour and buy something. Most of you would say no. No thanks. That sounds terrible. Everybody hates salespeople. Bottom line. There's something undesirable about the idea of somebody telling us what to do in our life, and that's why I started a rebellion against the whole premise of sales. Now, in the midst of creating a brand, the Copier Warrior brand, I actually created advertising for myself. Lots of props, like you just heard. So I had the crumpled letter, but I also had like fire or pre-burnt letters. So I literally take a torch and light up the bottom of my letters and put them in a fireproof bag. And at the top of the note, it would say, "You're probably wondering why this is all burnt up." Well, 99% of the sales and marketing you get is garbage that you're going to throw away. Well, I made it easier, but also you could use it as kindling to roast some marshmallows tonight with your family. And if I gave that to a C-level executive, they'd laugh their ass off. This is clever. I hire you today. I heard that more times than I can count. These are just simple concepts that I came up with to break away from the typical patterns of the way people present themselves and how they sell in an overly commoditized industry. But I also made this concept, the reason concept, to radically educate, to gain attention, to tell a story, to produce an outline, and to nuance everything. Attention, what does attention mean? Well, I've got most of your attention today. I've seen probably 4 or 5 of you on your stupid phones for most of this talk, but that's okay. But attention is the idea that you're listening to me no matter what. Attention is the idea that I have captivated you to some extent no matter what. Attention is the idea that whether you like me or not, I'm not indifferent. Indifference is the enemy of marketing and salespeople. Indifference is the enemy of your business. You have to make people feel. If people don't feel anything, then you are irrelevant to them. Stories are powerful. They tell the tale. What is the problem that these people are dealing with? What is the solution that they're looking for? What is the story of how they get there? I'm going to teach you guys all this on Friday when we wrap up for the second half of my talk, just in case you're wondering how deep we're going to go on this. But the outline is the idea of a mutual ground that you create with another person. I believe that all sales are done on mutual grounds, period. That if you don't desire to be in that place, I can't win the sale. It has to be a place you want to be just as much as I want to be. And it's not about giving you all of that space. It's about me wanting to desire to be there as well, too. Mutual. And nuancing is exactly what it sounds. A lot of the time we start a sale through a marketing campaign, through a cold outreach, whatever it is. And in the midst of having those initial conversations, we impress people. We give them things that make them feel dignified. They're excited. And then we get through the process, and we slowly lose them because we're just boring, kind of the bottom line. But to nuance the idea of attention, of story, of captivating people, of causing emotional impact is a powerful thought. Imagine even after the sale, you continue that same feeling. I believe that sales is a lifestyle. It is a choice to be a lifestyle as well, too. And with that, I want to show you exactly what I mean.
Hi, my name is Dale Dupree. I'm with North American Office Solutions. We're a full-service copier dealership for Canon, Konica Minolta, and HP products. We also specialize in IT services. Whether someone caught the copy machine on fire or an end user just needs a little more training on how to make a copy, I have the solution for you. Tamed. What was it? Paper jam. This is Dale. Listen, hang up the phone, call 911. I'm overnighting the parts now and heading to your office. Never heard of me? That's why my clients call me the best kept secret in office equipment.
I got one more.
It's Monday morning in the office. The weekend is wearing off and reality is slowly but surely setting in. But let's be honest, the only thing on your mind is whether or not the copier is broken.
Oh, it's everywhere. Why is this happening to me? No.
Control P. Control P. Control P. Control P.
Thank you for continuing to hold for copier support. A representative will be with you in 35 days.
So stop waiting for things to change with the same old copier company. And call me, Dale Dupree, with North American Office Solutions.
Great Scott! Guys, the copier! It's working! Guys, the copier! It's working!
So if your copier is broken, guys, I said if. Then pick up the phone and dial me, the best kept secret in office equipment. And remember, my friends, they call me the copier warrior.
So it's easily the weirdest thing that you've ever seen or the dopest thing that you've ever experienced. But no matter what, I exist in a different place in your mind now. Imagine this showing up on your local TV stations and your YouTube scrolling, in your business on a printed sheet with a QR code to go and watch it. Imagine that it showed up with a sword that I sent you in order to stab your copy machine with to fix it and end your woes. Imagine an experience unlike anything else in a commoditized arena that no one gives a shit about except for you. My dad used to have this saying. It was such a beautiful saying. He would say, nobody cares as much as you. You've heard that before, but he would end it with this, except for me. I love that. Gives me chills every time I say it. Because if you care more than anybody else about everything, it's about excellence in all things, personal, professional, and private. Everything changes. That was the riskiest thing that I ever did in the business world. People made fun of me. I got called an idiot, and it was mostly from who? My competition. My market loved it. The first year I rolled this out, I sold over $1 million in total hardware. Used equipment, by the way. The average transaction was $4,000. That's a lot of equipment. In the midst of massive turmoil inside of the economic engine, 2009 and 2010, this is how I came out of it. I was this guy doubling down on my weird self and authentic self and saying, I don't care what people think. There's only one person that cares about what other people think, and it's you. And I decided that I was not going to be that person. I am denouncing that idea. I don't care. I still love people, but I don't care what they think. I'm on a mission. I'm going to fulfill it, period. It's a powerful thought to be passionate about what you do. I sold copy machines. How can you be passionate about that? You just saw it. I freaking love copy machines. It's the weirdest thing in the world, but I do. They changed my life. And my clients would tell you the same thing. They would tell you that their interactions with me changed their lives. Because I did not just say, cool, let me save you some money. I went all the way to the meat and potatoes and the bone of every deal. How can I help you extrinsically and intrinsically? How can I serve you in ways that are going to be foretold by you as excellence and nothing else? Dale saved me an hour a week in a process, and I can't tell you how much that means. Dale gave me days of uptime so I could go and worry about something else. Or make it to my kids' basketball practice instead of sitting at this machine printing thousands of sheets for an RFP. I heard stories like that from people. I'm not just saying it to say it. The person I learned from, though, was my father, Curtis Dupree, the ex-football star, turned copier salesperson, turned copier company owner. Kind of a wild thought. 29 years my dad ran that business. And in 2012, we were offered by a competitor whom I was just literally taking all of the business from to be bought. With that offer came 11 more. My dad, I remember he set me down. He said, no one cares about the business. They all want you. The contracts lock you in for 4 or 5 years. They want you, bro. Talk about inflating your ego. I had to be very humble in those moments, and my father was such a great guide towards those things. As a matter of fact, my father took the lowest offer. My dad had offers for millions of dollars. He took a 6-figure offer to give me freedom. No contracts. Told me that it served our clients better. And it would make him happier. And me. It was a humbling moment too. Okay, there's something different here. And in 2012, after 90 days in this company acquisition that we went through, there was bets on me by pretty much every salesperson that I'd be fired within the first 120 because I was the teacher's pet. I was daddy's boy. Without daddy, I wasn't going to survive. Well, I became the number 1 rep in 90 days, and I never left that mantle. For 7 years of that organization, I took them from $8 million to $25 million in 4.5 of those years. They were a 15-year-old company when they bought us, $8 million. You imagine that kind of growth inside of your firm in 4 years, a fraction of those 15? This was the methodology that I used. The theory of reason, to choose legendary, to be excellence in all things. And now I want to tell you a couple quick stories. I'm going to wrap up, and I'll see you on Friday. First story. In all of our walks, we have felt some type of high pressure. No matter what it is that whether it's the job you're in now or maybe one in the past. In those 90 days when I became the number 1 rep, the pressure was boiling over. 20 plus other reps inside of the organization. It was intense. I was the number 1 salesperson for net new business. Does that compute to everybody? New accounts. I would average about 80 to 90 a year. And out of those 80 or 90 accounts a year, a typical salesperson would get about 13. That's a crazy thought, right? So our whole industry, I'm talking about not just in my territory or at my company, our whole industry across the United States and the globe, it was 13 on average. I was an anomaly. The pressures of that are heavy and intense. Maybe you've built a unicorn or been a part of that at some point yourself. It's intense. It's not easy. It might look good on screen. It might feel like happiness and fulfillment, but there's a dark side to all this, and it's part of my story. By the time 2014 came around, I was literally selling millions of dollars in revenue, and I was extraordinarily wealthy from nothing. That first year at 33% to quota full commission, how much money do you think I made? Just give a guess. He said 40. That's funny. Close. 20 is closer. $27,000 after taxes. You still pay taxes when you're in poverty in the United States. It's crazy. I ate out of cans. I'd pull into McDonald's and try to pay for things in coins and be a penny short and be told it's sorry. That was my life. It was distracting. It was immense. It was painful. It was a lot. Coming out of that, in 2011, I made my first 6 figures just into 2012, and it wasn't just like $100,000, it was $180 after taxes. That's a huge leap from $27,000, right? I felt blessed. I felt gifted. I felt inspired. And then the next year, I made $300,000 plus, and the year after that, I made over $500,000. And as a copier sales rep, my owner used to joke, he'd bring me his W-2. Now, I know he owned the company, so he had more money. But he'd bring me his W-2 at the end of the year, and he'd show me that I made more money than him, the guy that bought our company. I love that man. I always thought it was funny to see that, too. I was like, yeah, but I just made you like $8 million. Money is not the answer, is the whole point of why I bring this up. The reason that this exists, the reason that I stand here before you today is not because of money. Ultimately, it's because I desire to change the world, personally. I know that I can't do that, but I do. I desire that. Well, I pushed really hard in those old days, thought that money would fix me, would make everything right. And in 2014, I woke up at about 4 in the morning, drove to my office by about 4:30, got there by about 5:15. It was a 45-minute drive. Sat down at my desk, and I penned a suicide note. I had planned to kill myself that day. With everything. Everything I dreamed of, everything I wanted, all the fulfillment in the world, through success. Yet I decided that day was the last. Ultimately, I was saved through divinity. I shouldn't be here before you today. I'm a statistic. Very low number. It started with a simple interaction, though. As I sat at that desk and I had finished even writing my note, I heard something in the office. I waited at my desk, listened to footsteps come around the corner, and through the door of my office walked my father, the man who created my success. I blamed him to some extent. One thing I did not mention on purpose was that when my father sold the business, he took a job as a salesperson to be there for me through the journey. Excellence in all things. And I said, what are you doing here at 5:30 in the morning? And he said, I don't know. I just had a feeling I was supposed to be here today. That moment changed my life. I still tried to go through the act. I was saved. And everything took a completely different route, which I'll tell you about on Friday. Until then, I want you to think about one word and one word only throughout your entire time through the next couple of days before I see you again, and that is excellence in all things. As you enjoy the other speakers, as you enjoy the presence of each other, as you enjoy your industry and what it is that you are all here to learn and accomplish with each other, I just want you to remember excellence. Thank you for listening. I'll see you on Friday.